Okay, do we have enough people here to call this meeting to order, ma'am? Then we are going to call the Town Council regular meeting to order at 6:02 or so and ask Pam Schilling for a roll call, please.
Bernie Brower.
Here.
Katie Schwer. Gary Tenenbaum. He's here somewhere.
He is here.
Jennifer Riffle. Here. Auden Schindler.
Here.
Mark Kittle.
Here.
Jackie Witzik.
Here.
18 is present.
Thank you, Clerk of the World. Okay, we would also like to thank Grassroots TV and Sarah, our videographer, for putting together and holding together and sending out this meeting tonight on the airwaves. And also let everybody know that there is Mayor's Coffee on Wednesday mornings after every regular meeting. It is at Saxy's at 8 a.m. Please come over and join me or anybody else who happens to be there. So the first item on our agenda is the consent agenda. If there are questions or someone wants to pull something off that agenda for discussion, this would be a time to do it. If not, if there's a motion.
I'd like to pull item 8A.
Okay, wait,
This
this
is
is
the
the.
consent.
Oh, the consent. Oh, I
agenda.
thought you said if there's something that you
Oh,
want to.
no, that will be late. So
Got it.
this is just the consent agenda.
Okay.
So I'm just looking for either a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We're gonna rattle right through this.
We're trying. Our
Was
next
that-
item is citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda and items that have been added to the agenda after the deadline. So if there's anybody in our audience who would like to speak about an item that's not on the agenda. Okay, no. Okay, council comments, I'll just say council comments at this point in time. Jen? Your eyes are big, like you have something.
I'm shifting my brain. The Bach group that I am chairing on for the council met, and we have had 2 very successful meetings. The last one was a joint meeting. I met one of my first 100 days of office goals by inviting Eagle County, Aspen-Pitkin County Housing Authority, and the town of Basalt and Aspen Skiing Company to have a round table to discuss the affordable housing and the consideration of what can we do to work together and keep that line of communication open. And from it, we walked away with aiming for little wins and bets, not aiming necessarily for a new entity, to initiate a collective energy very similar to open space and trails that goes beyond the borders of jurisdictions. And then what we are going to aim for on our next meeting, which is around August 8th-ish, is strategic talking points for this regional-wide issue and having a common language so that we can continue working towards the future of solving and offering more affordable housing.
Thank you, Jen. Other comments from council? Yes, sir.
I just want to, I got a lot of community comments from a lot of people who are very interested in early childcare, and they were very impressed that we were actually making something happen when they saw the article in the paper about the red brick and school district housing and everything else. And I think we just sometimes need to give ourselves a little clap, because it's not only us, but it's the community that wins. And if we work together, we can actually solve some big issues, and that was a big win. So I thank everybody who's been part of this whole thing to make it happen, and thank Mike and Tom for keeping it moving through the process. So thank you all.
And just to sort of add to that a little bit, these kind of things don't happen unless you have relationships with those other entities. And because of Gary, who has been working on this the longest, and because of Mike Scanlon, and because of the school district, and because of relationships that have been built there, that's why this happened. It doesn't fall out of the sky. So thanks again, guys. Other comments? Okay. I have quick comments. We had a retreat last week on Wednesday for almost all day. I want to thank all of the town council for giving up last Wednesday to meet and talk about our town's future. A lot of people had very important jobs that they had to leave to do this, and I appreciate it, or recreation, whichever. I also want to thank Chris Gates, who's not here, but he flew in, and the excellent facilitation that he provided us. We couldn't have done it without him. What I believe we all experienced was a shared passion that we have for the town of Basalt. I left last Wednesday feeling hopeful and excited about our town's future, and also very excited about what a great team we have. We have really, really brilliant people on this council with a huge diversity of skills and knowledge, and I hate to say it's the best ever because they've all been fabulous, but it's a great council. As it relates to some of the big directions we took, I'm just going to summarize really quickly 3 bullets. We want to give the community a beautiful park, and we're committed to working through the numbers and giving the citizens something to vote on in November. As we prepare the ballot issue, we want to include the citizens in that discussion. I've asked Mike to work on dates where, once the town council settles on the park components and phasing, the citizens have an opportunity to be included in the discussion. And lastly, an important part of this park development is the ownership of the land. The town is exploring options for the preservation of the park parcel. So that's all I have. How about SGM engineers report? Lewis Meyer. Welcome, Lewis.
Good evening.
You just keep coming back. I love it. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
Good evening. Just a few updates. I'll start with the Basalt Avenue underpass. We've been in contact with the contractor. The latest is we will get a schedule from them next week, and that schedule will be brought to the town for review, and that will set into motion other things that need to be done prior to the contractor starting. The contractor is still planning to start early in September. We've continued to do some other monitoring of groundwater levels to help us during the construction process. We've continued to coordinate with some of the shallow utility companies that need to relocate their lines prior to construction. That is really what we know with Basalt Avenue underpass. Pardon? Yes.
And then once the underpass is in, I noticed there's an 8 feet rise in the water, groundwater, and that will all be waterproofed, correct? So not gonna be have to wading through the water in the springtime to get through the underpass.
Good questions, Mark.
It's kind of the design is kind of a double hull underpass
Okay.
of the section that is under groundwater.
Like a ship more than an underpass.
Submarine.
Yes.
Submarine, thank you.
Yeah, that was my question, Mark. Is that 8 foot of extra groundwater, is that going to be a problem for the base foundation of the thing? Is that going to create erosion around?
No, it was designed for all of that. It was designed, with high groundwater comes a lot of buoyancy forces that want to lift that out of the ground, and it was sized and designed to take care of all of that.
Is there any other questions on this item, or did you have anything else you wanted to?
Just a few other things. Nothing going on with the floodplain letter of map revision. That's all in FEMA's court right now. We have worked with town staff to rewrite your flood damage prevention ordinance. We rewrote it without changing any of the substance. We wrote it in a format that is consistent with how the state of Colorado recommends that small towns write their ordinances. So our next step is to visit with town staff to make sure that it is consistent with other citations in the code. There will be a time where there will be discussion on substantive changes, but that we're not ready to make those yet. We want to bring those back with you and have a discussion why we're recommending those substantive changes. But first, we'd like to visit with town staff. So, we've been working with town staff on a south side traffic study to look at all the pending and future developments on the south side and how that traffic may work coming out to Highway 82. Where the underpass will solve several problems with pedestrian crossings, adding an additional right-hand turn lane, and also the timing of that light. However, we know that in the future that will not be enough, that there will be other things that will have to be done to mitigate traffic issues on the south side of Basalt.
Yeah, Gary.
What are some of those other ideas potentially? Have you thought of any? Like, just so people get to know, like, what else it's gonna take, that this one extra turn lane is not gonna solve the issue?
There's a whole gamut of things. There's, I would say on the low end of the range are things like adding a roundabout somewhere. There are reconfigurations of Cody Lane that could help. I would say those are on the low end. On the high end is someday you will need a second access point from that side of the highway to this side of the highway. Of course, that's a...
We're putting in an underpass.
The cars of the future will be small.
But our traffic engineers have a lot of those ideas that they'd like to bring back to you and throw those ideas out. So.
Liz, can I just also, kind of following along with that, ask, is there a group that is gonna start talking about this pretty soon? Because if you start talking Highway 82 additional access, that's kind of a future big deal.
Yes.
So like, let's presume that the underpass is done before we talk about it, but is there a thought about how that might look?
Well, we finished the report. Our next step is to sit down with town staff and get their input on it. There has been some discussion with the Southside business owners on what their concerns have been. We have had some discussions with RAFTA in Pitkin County. So we're really not ready to start that process yet, but I'm sure after discussions with town staff, we'll be ready to start that process. West Shopritz Drive, we're in the middle of a construction project to do some road work and drainage work, and that work is ongoing and should be complete by the end of this month. Southside tank stabilization, we've been working with town water department staff and a geotechnical consultant to stabilize that tank. We have found that over the last couple of years that tank has settled slightly, so we did an investigation what was causing the settlement. We found there was no leakage coming from any of the tank itself, from any of the pipe fittings. So we then pursued a process of grout stabilization where we went inside the tank and through some fittings injected grout underneath the tank to lift it up to its correct elevation, and that will stabilize the tank for the future. We're now in the process of essentially repainting those fittings that were used to inject the tank, and once that coating is dry, we will refill the tank.
Yeah, Gary.
Question on the water hammers. Have those, like, is that, once you refill the tank and get that going again, are you gonna get those water hammers again?
Gary, the usually water hammers are non-existent when you have a floating water tank on that side of town and this side of town. The water hammer is virtually unheard of.
Okay.
When you close a valve somewhere between the town's distribution system and that tank, that creates a spot for air to accumulate, and that air doesn't have anywhere to go, and that can create water hammer.
Okay.
So we believe putting the tank back online will mitigate as much as possible the water hammer problems. Water hammer can be initiated by many other things: opening fire hydrants, having people's fire sprinklers go off, many things like that that can cause water hammer. So
There's a few in Southside that have happened, and I hear about them, and
I remember.
so I'm hoping, I was just like, oh my God, you're gonna put it back online, is that gonna cause a water hammer? But hopefully it'll settle out and not have any more.
that's correct, yeah. Having a gravity tank at that elevation will definitely help that situation.
Other questions for Louis? Thank you, Louis. Always
Thank
good
you.
information. Thanks. Okay, town manager's report.
So, sort of in keeping with some of the things we talked about at the retreat, the closing the loop. So someone appeared at the council meeting, they had an issue, trying to bring back whoever the department head was that worked on the issue to give you an update. So if you remember from the meeting 2 weeks ago, I think it was Mr. Fritz, and it had to do with traffic on Midland. And with that, I introduced Chief Knott.
Hi, Chief.
Good evening. So,
Yay.
after Mr. Fritz came in and spoke to you, I reached out to him and we had a discussion about ideas that he had for Midland Spur of traffic calming or ways to slow it down. One of the things that I explained to him is we have this issue in many areas of town of speeding concerns on many different streets. And we're doing traffic studies to try and get an idea of actual speeds, traffic counts in many areas of town. So right now, we're doing one up on West Cypress Drive. After that one's done, we're going to be doing Midland Spur, and then that'll give us a better picture of what we're looking at. From the department heads with the town manager, having discussions of how do we address this on a town-wide scale rather than piecemealing it. We've met with the homeowners in Willits, Single Family Homeowners Association on East Valley Road, and what their wishes are, and Mr. Fritz and Riverside Drive, West Cypress, Homestead, South Side. There's many that have concerns, and we have to look at this, I think, as a town-wide, how do we address these problems? And the first thing that we have to do is get the data. And so that's what we're in the process of right now, is getting the data to see exactly what the problem is or what the times are, how we can address that without large infrastructure costs. Because ultimately, to calm the traffic, you have to create friction, which costs money. And that's the traffic calming that we're looking at, and how do we do that all across piecemeal in specific areas.
When will that be put together so we can see what it looks like?
The traffic studies?
Yeah.
They take about a week each to get both ways of traffic. So we just finished up with Sopers. We had some problems up there where the mechanical part of it malfunctioned, so we had to start that one again, and that's why there's the delay. This one will take a week, and then as we compile that, I'll get back with you and show you in a memo of what we're seeing in all areas of town.
And Greg, at the end of that data collection, is there somebody who does analysis on it to say, what does it mean and what do you do about it?
I think we have to look at it from the department head standpoint, town staff standpoint, and see what we're actually looking at. There's been some past studies that I've done since I've been here that a speed limit is 15 and the average speed is 17 miles an hour. So that's the average of the vehicles, but every once in a while you have one that goes through at 25, 10 miles an hour over. So, so how do you address that? Is it a problem that we can address with enforcement? Can we address it with traffic calming, temporary solutions so that we're not impacting public works in the winter too? So all the department head staff will be getting together to look at those numbers.
Other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Always great.
So now I tag on to
Excuse me.
we hired Deb Pattison, who is an administrative assistant here at Town Hall. Some of you have already met her. She works 26 hours a week. We're trying to figure out in terms of how we shift and share the workload. She's been a tremendous asset already in terms of I was able to come back from the retreat. I had a lot of notes that I took, and she's already converted all of those notes. We're going to really get her into helping us with the packet, which is a huge undertaking. and get her up to speed in terms of how to post it. Has a lot of experience working both in Pitkin County and Aspen. So when somebody comes in with a question that might seem, you know, off the wall to a new employee, if you've worked in city or county government and you've heard the question before, you kind of know where you have to go in terms of finding the answer, or you already have the answer. So a tremendous asset. We're so fortunate to have her. If you get a chance, stop by town hall and introduce yourself to her. Really great personality, really great person to work with. She'll be helping with the town manager's report, so that's on her list of things to start doing. So she'll collect up all the department head reports. I'll just do a bulleted list, and then we're gonna start building a database so that when you get the Mr. Foots question, you know when it started, you know who's working on it, and you know when we're coming back. And that's really when you get really efficient in terms of the use of time, as well as her helping us with the digitizing of like resolutions and ordinances. So last week I had to pull out all the notebooks for the last 3 years and say, go through them and find all the marijuana pieces. Then copy the pages related to that. And you can kind of see once you get those pieces scanned and they're searchable, those tasks aren't 4 and 5 hours, those tasks are 45 minutes in terms of achieving them. So that's sort of my highlight in terms of the things that we're working on. A lot of underpass stuff, a lot of getting ready. There's a calendar that the mayor has right there, I think that all of you have, so just kind of hold it up here.
This timeline thing?
Right. So there was one that I sent out last week, and this is an update, and I highlighted the things that are different, with the most important thing being that hopefully by the 26th of July, you have your park components and your phasing, with this public outreach being Thursdays and Saturdays. So 2 weeks of Thursdays and Saturdays leading up to the August 9th meeting. Start publishing, you know, we're gonna have these open houses as relates to the public park improvements that the town's considering, and then getting all of that information out there so people can start, you know, I might be able to make the Thursday, I can't make the Saturday, but the idea would be Thursday and sort of do it like the Whitewater Park, where they gave a long time, so like 5 to 9 on Thursday and like 8 to noon on Saturday, so that there's a 4-hour period in which people can stop by and they can ask questions. And so coming up with sort of that phasing piece that you're gonna work on the next 2 weeks becomes sort of that handout when somebody comes in the room, and then color coding it to a map so they can look at, okay, so that's what that is and that's what it costs, and then they can ask, you know, questions related to anything else that we're doing. I would like to, those council members that are interested, if they want to participate in those events, just tell me. Love to have you. It's really helpful, I think, for staff to have an elected official there, because there's questions we can't answer that sometimes elected officials can, in terms of, this is the process we're going through, and, you know, I'm working with my other council members, these are the concerns that we have. Just to have sort of that sort of human touch, because it makes a big difference when you're trying to explain a complex project to someone. And then Jen, I think, has volunteered to man a town information booth this Sunday at the Sunday market. And we're gonna be using that big map that's in the hallway, sort of as a precursor, and using Jen to kind of like, what questions are you getting, so that when you put together a frequently asked question, you kind of know the ones that people are most concerned about. And I'm trying to think, that's all I have.
And anyone that would like to join on council, I invite you to. I'll be there. And anyone that wants to sign up to man the tent for following Sundays, that'd be awesome. And that's part of our public outreach drive.
Good idea. Right. Thank you. Any questions of Mike? Okey doke.
Do you want to amend the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. The next item is item 6. Items for council consideration and information, regional communications, radio upgrade. Phyllis, Matisse, and, let's see, she's the assistant county manager, and Jeff Kruger, communications site manager, both Pitkin County. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Great.
I provided you with a memo in your packet packet that gave you a lot of the background information of how we got here and why we're making the choice to move away from our current VHF system into the 800 system. I think you might have had the presentation in your packet, but we'll go through it just to give you a little more background information. Most of the states on this system, and we have a lot of positive comments from other public safety agencies like the Colorado State Patrol that's happy that we're making the change. So thank you. That's the advancer, okay? So the digital trunk radio system. So this is going digital from an analog system, just like when TVs went digital. The folks that are using it currently, which I do believe your police already is, because Eagle County is on the 800 system. It's a much better reception that folks get. Our old system was really hard. They gave us a price tag of, I think it was $1.7 million to fix it, and that still had us maintaining all the equipment for the years. You see by this, there's a little pocket that are partially 800 with Pitkin County on top of Gunnison Delta. We have partial DTRS because we have a site at Crown here in the Mid-Valley and at Ajax, top of Aspen Mountain. So there's a lot, 218 sites. The zone controllers are are in the various parts of the state that control the whole system. What do we need? And this is the infrastructure cost that we have to pay is the sites themselves, the towers, the building, the generators, getting power to them. We upgraded the Crown in Ajax this summer, and the state did that. We did an MOU with the state of Colorado, OIT, DTRS, I think is how they're called. And through that MOU, for 25 years, the state pays for any of the replacement costs, all of the maintenance costs on the electronic equipment. We still have to maintain towers and buildings and that infrastructure. So new sites that we're building, Aspen Water, so that's at Hunter Creek, where the parking lot is for the Hunter Creek Trail. Loge, top of Highlands. We are working with the Forest Service and the permitting that goes on with the Forest Service, and partnering with Ski Company on being able to provide us with space so we don't have to build a building, we just have to build the tower. Williams, which is at Old Snowmass entrance, it's state land board land. It's a current translator site. We have TV and FM translators across the county, actually the region. And so that's being upgraded. We have towers that are in disrepair that we're working on. Town of Snowmass Village Town Hall. And then McClure, that one's going to be a challenge. Not only is it in roadless, it's on a scenic byway and the wild waterway new designation it may have. So we're trying to figure out if there's another mountaintop that will give us the same kind of distribution on it. And then all of these are going to be hooked together with microwaves. Looking at partners, we're looking at our own broadband project, may be able to do microwave links so we can have one set of microwaves on the same towers that will provide a circle of connectivity for both this project, if we advance with broadband, and also our TV and FM is also linked by microwave. So it's a little busy with a lot of lines, but this is kind of where we are. You see the Crown. We have a site at Sunlight Peak, which is a major communication site in Garfield County. We have a site currently at Elephant. So you can see by the amount of lines that this is really a circle of connectivity. So we'll have redundant paths for all of this radio communication. The state's trying to move the Red Table site, which went in last summer. Through cooperation, we thought we were going to have to pay for this site, but Holy Cross went to the state and said, you can use our building. The state said, well, if we can use your building, we'll put all the equipment in and pay for it all, and that site's in operation right now. It also serves all the way into Gypsum and fills some hold for the state there. So if anybody has any questions along the line, you're welcome to stop me and let me know. Our partnerships, we've got quite a busy group of people doing.
for the purpose of obtaining a priority and occupying a town-owned unit. And the counselors will still be considered along the lines with what their priority would be as their primary occupation. Another part is that individuals or families renting a town-owned unit shall not own property in other areas of the Roaring Fork Valley. And clarifying that Judy Tippett, the finance director, shall administer the rental of the town-owned units. And then as well, expanding the SHEC, which is the, I don't remember what.
Professional Housing Evaluation Committee.
Yes, shall include 2 members of BOC that will be appointed by the town council, so that we have a little bit more diversity than town manager, police chief, public works director, and town planner. In addition to these, I am going to motion,
Can I stop you really quick?
Sure.
I just wanted clarification on item 3. It says individuals or families renting a town-owned unit shall not own other property in the Roaring Fork Valley. Can they own,
Is it
say,
housing?
6 houses in Denver?
It's, yes, and
Okay.
that's what I'm going to expand and amend and clarify. The qualifying person must not own developed residential real estate to include Mesa County as well. Because if we are looking at the distance of employees traveling, that it's being consistent with the fire and emergency departments. Yeah, that you need to live within a certain area and be involved in this community.
That was Gunnison County. Did you contemplate that? I kinda
Like
feel
Marble.
They're really
It's
close.
already in there.
It
Okay.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
We're behind, Katie.
What else? Do you want to hear what my amendments are?
Yeah.
What Bach suggests as well?
This is a motion, right?
Yes, this is a motion.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure, most definitely.
Yeah. Auden, Katie?
I don't know off the top of my head the definition of a category 3 requirement. Can you refresh my memory on that one? What is category 3? Like, what are the parameters?
Category 3 has a cap in the 120% of AMI range, and it has income and asset restrictions in the 120% of area.
Actually a number.
Yeah, I don't have it with me unfortunately, but
It was in the $80,000 range.
yeah, it's pretty high.
Okay. My other question is, looking through Exhibit A, I didn't see anything addressing what happens when employment is terminated, either willingly or not, for an employee. Do they have some type of amount of time before they have to vacate? Do they get to fulfill the entire lease? Since we're readjusting language and making this more pinpointed to employee housing, I think that the ramifications of whether or not they're actually employed falls into this.
I really like that point, Katie. We did not touch on that, and that is something that I can add to the amend. Bach is meeting again on Thursday, so in 2 days, to then iron out the couple remaining pieces.
Okay.
And we're open and receptive, so any,
I can, it's a 6-month lease, it expires, you have to requalify. 1-year lease, at the end of 1 year, you have to requalify. And APSA decided some time back not to require termination of the leases. If just on the basis that you lose a job within that lease term because of the hardship that could be imposed on somebody, if as soon as they lose their job, they also lose their house. It could be that the person is trying to find another place to live, or, trying to find another job, and they are up against it and are looking to get a job so that they can stay qualified. People moving out of the area and not being employed here for that reason, they're gonna voluntarily give them up. So it was just felt that at APSA level, and you can change it if you want, of course, that it would be adding a hardship to what might often be already a hardship situation for somebody who loses their job.
I would like for Bach to continue the conversation on that, and I appreciate APSHA's insight. I just have concern, like, what if someone gets a job 1 month and they sign a 1-year lease, and then whatever happens, we're stuck with them, and maybe not having a positive relationship, and we're managing that housing.
That's the other side of the story, for sure. Yeah.
Auden had his hand.
I'm good.
So my question on that, then, should we pass this resolution or wait until we amend it?
I think if you're going to amend it, you should have the amendments in front of you, either
Yeah.
now by scribbling them out, or at least conceptually. We can do the wordsmithing out of the room,
Okay,
but
so we can add an amendment
Yeah,
to
you don't-
what Katie
yeah.
just said?
if the concept is
Not to be
clear,
perfect.
staff can get it in the,
Okay.
And that's what we do have, is we're, as of 3 o'clock today, we were going to table this because of the amendments, but now we do have the amendments clearly written out of what we do plan on amending. And
Did
so
you have Katie's?
I just added it,
Oh, okay, so.
yes.
Okay, Bernie.
I'd like to amend Katie's amendment that the cessation of lease shall not be earlier than 90 days from cessation of employment.
Goes using those $10 words again.
We won't kick him out until 3 months after he stops his employment. Him or her. I just,
So,
I think it might help if Jen actually read her motion, because I'm a little unclear as to how we're proceeding.
okay. So, Mayor, I move that the town council approve resolution number 25, series of 2016, and ask Bach to make additional recommendations for changes to the policy which addresses A, the situation when the employee receiving a town-owned unit also receives a housing allowance. And you can stop me if you have questions. B, changing the priorities to elevate school district employees and combining other governmental employees with other qualifying full-time employees in the employment area. So changing the priority system. C, amending and clarifying the current 1 qualified employee per bedroom requirement to address families and to provide that an employee may not rent the extra bedroom to a non-qualified employee. D, amending and clarifying qualified person must not own developed residential real estate to include Mesa County. And E, cessation of lease shall not be set to 90 days from employment separation.
Okay, so that's a motion, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can we get a second for discussion?
second.
Okay, so let's say there was a second by, let's say Katie.
Yeah.
Let me just throw this out there as a thought. This seems to me like, Bach is meeting again in 2 more days, right?
Correct.
The ball is rolling, so it's not like we haven't taken action to move forward as we requested that staff and Bach do. I would be more comfortable to bring this back in a little bit neater package, after Bach looks at it again, because they may come up with other things and not pass this now. I mean, it can always be amended, I realize, but I'm not totally comfortable with having this complex of amendments to something that we already have on the table. But it's your calls. So we have a motion and a second.
Hold on, my only
Yes,
other
sir.
comment is,
Yeah.
they're gonna bring back something else. This is just getting it
Getting
moving.
it out there.
Yeah,
pass this, and then
Yeah.
come back.
Because we
amendments
currently
later.
have nothing. We
Right.
have
Okay.
no policy whatsoever.
Right.
Okay, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
thanks.
That made our decision.
Yeah.
That was easy. That was easy. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, thanks, James. Okay, the next one is Resolution 26, a resolution of the town approving a change in the times of outdoor live music for Midland Avenue businesses that maintain a valid liquor license. Mike Scanlon. And do we want to have Heather?
Presenter.
Heather, come on up. You, come on up to the table in case you need to say something, the microphone can pick it up.
Renee has to step in because he had to take over the front.
Oh, sure, Renee, whatever.
To be here. So anyways, I guess we want to extend our music until 10:30?
Correct.
What I read.
Yeah. So that's it. That's what the town wants. I mean, that's what the people want. That's what we would like. It's our business.
Yeah.
And it's
Mr. Scanlon has some remarks, I believe.
Memorial Day to Labor Day,
Uh-huh.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Just those days?
Yeah.
Just for 3 days?
Till 10:30.
To
Till
10:30.
10:30.
What's the time limit now?
10.
10.
And people just say, you just get going, and people are saying, you stopping? So,
Right. So are there
Well,
questions? Go ahead.
Is this a public hearing or anything?
No.
I
the
make a
music
motion-
now is from Tuesday to Saturday. But you're saying Wednesday, Thursday,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday, Friday,
You
Saturday,
can
yeah.
go an extra half hour.
That's more, yeah, it's more weekend.
Motion to approve resolution 26, series of 2016.
Second.
Second by Gary. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Awesome, thank you
Thanks for
very much.
coming over.
Thanks.
Okay, let's see, 8C is gone. 9A, recommendations from the Finance Committee. Who wants to take this one?
So,
In conjunction with Mike and Bonnie, speak as you'd like. So we had our first finance committee last week, I think it was Tuesday morning, and the ordinance indicates that we meet the first Monday of each month, but I have been changing up that date just because of my schedule, and everyone's been gracious to accommodate that. Our next meeting is July 11th instead of July 5th because of a holiday. But items that we discussed are outlined in this memo that I think Mike summarized, and I would like him to take over, especially the IGA portion of this memo.
So, the way the finance committee will work is there will be a meeting and then we'll have the minutes, and we'll include the minutes with the recommendations that come from the finance committee. And you'll get all of those support pieces that they had when they reviewed it. There's a couple of items that are actually in the packet that were a discussion point. So if you get to the accounts payable section, you're gonna see that we're doing large item accounts payable, where we actually produce all of the detail information for items that are greater than $5,000. So that was a discussion that occurred at the finance committee, and we've just incorporated it into the packet. 9B is the IGA with Pitkin County and RAFTA. They have administered 2 underpass projects. They're going to administer ours in terms of project management. If you read the IGA, it is G.R. Fielding, the engineer for Pitkin, that will be representing Pitkin, and it's Nick Sin, who's with the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority, that will be their representative. We're paying them each $100,000 to do that. They believe they can achieve the type of management we need on this project for that amount of money. There will be an SGM component that I will be bringing back. SGM will be doing materials testing and design integration. So where there's pieces missing or a question that comes up in the design, we have SGM there able to assist. The idea with using Pitkin and RAFTA is that they're serving as our agents. And so when you get into questions related to, is this an engineering problem or a construction problem, they're able to sort through that. The fact that they've done projects just like that along Highway 82, working with CDOT, is a huge benefit to us. They're willing to do everything, including all of the Davis-Bacon that you have to do related to prevailing wages, and submit all of the reimbursements to CDOT on our behalf, which is a huge amount of work, and we really appreciate that. Tom gets the last shot at sort of the IGA that they worked out between those two parties, so RAFTA and Pitkin are fine with this agreement and their bodies support it. Now Tom will take a pass at it and look at look at it from the town's perspective. One of the most important pieces, and it's going to be addressed in the last piece, is the warranty work. So the project gets done, and there's something wrong. So you have to be able to carry sort of what I call this warranty period of both engineering, inspection, and qualification and quantification of whatever the problems or issues are. So that will probably be SGM, probably working with Pitkin County would be my guess. We'll probably use GR Fielding to do that. So there's another piece that's coming, but the goal is by August 1st, we have our project management wrapped up, we have our materials inspection agreement wrapped up, we have our design integration wrapped up, and we're starting to work on all the PR pieces, because then we'll have the construction schedule that we received in July. A lot of work that you've never seen went into getting this done, and a big thanks to Dan Blankenship with RAFTA and John Peacock with Pitkin County, basically telling their staffs, figure out how you help us all, come up with a framework, work it out.
This is
Katie and Bernie.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you.
Katie and Bernie.
When is the next meeting?
July 11th.
And I believe I said we meet on the first Monday. I think we meet on the first Tuesday. I am totally confusing everybody.
People are lining up for this meeting.
It's true. All the time, and it's in this direction. Everyone's gonna have this in the calendar tomorrow.
There's limited seating, everyone, so
Bring your sleeping
Yes.
bag.
bring your sleeping bag. Right.
Item 9C, I think, exciting is the word that comes to mind. Quarterly reporting, and I am actually excited about this dashboard that's being, I guess, recreated or morphed from what previously existed. So both the Finance Committee and the Town Council will be reviewing that quarterly to help us see where we are, actuals in our general fund and in our budget to actuals.
More user-friendly.
Yeah. So that was pretty much everything we did, right?
The cash flow projection.
Cash flow,
Oh, okay.
Participation, the COPs.
COPs.
Oh, right.
So the cash flow projection, and there's a gray bar that's sort of in the middle. So you have to take all the revenues that we anticipate collecting, and they come from 6 different sources. And then you layer in when you think you're going to receive them. Then you make estimates on how you will spend down the contract that you have. And then as you fill in your revenues, figuring out when is it that you have to put in what's called certificates of participation. So the town's contribution to the Basalt Avenue underpass is about $3 million, but we don't collect $3 million on an annual basis. So what happens is you issue what's called certificates of participation. They're really short-term lease documents in which banks, and it's going to be typically banks in Colorado, give you money through a lease arrangement to fund the project. And if you remember sort of the 5-year Parks, Open Space, and Trails forecast, you saw that we set aside basically $650,000 5 years in a row to repay that. Our hope is that by using a combination of what we've collected, that we really don't issue that total amount, but you kind of put the total amount out there just in case. So what we anticipate happening is sometime about January, February, we'll be back talking to you about certificates of participation, and then those dollars will help us finish out the project. And then we'll probably be layering in what we're doing with the park in terms of how to match up bond and indebtedness with our COPs to kind of fund, those improvements that are being anticipated. So if you look on the agenda, we actually put motions on the agenda, and these are motions where the Finance Committee made a recommendation to the council. So they're all recommendations to the council from the Finance Committee.
I have a question that came up while I was reading this and the information that was connected with it regarding the larger expenditures over $5,000. And I'm wondering, I have a couple questions from those, and when is the appropriate time to, okay. So one question that I have is regarding, and this was brought to me as well by a citizen, is on the law offices of Austin, Pearson, Smith. The items that are 30 Shining Mountain Way, and how did, Tom, how did you get involved with that? And is there direction from council for you to manage the negotiation? Or the way that I was under the impression, and Jackie and I have been contacted requesting outreach from the citizens of 30 Shining Mountain Way to have a meeting with council and town manager. And so I just want to make sure that we are in alignment and where your direction is coming from, and that I see a job that Jackie, Mike, and I can accomplish.
Well, I'm not sure I followed all of that. You want to know what my involvement is? Okay. This is property that the town acquired from Rocky Mountain Institute for the purpose of meeting their affordable housing mitigation requirement. And the town utilizes the property for housing qualified employees, one of whom is Judy. And I think there are other, I don't know if there are any other town employees in there, but there's, for example, a Picken County Sheriff's deputy in one of the units. There have been legal issues surrounding the private nature of the access road. And there has unfortunately been a lot of bickering among residents about the town attempting to enforce the private nature of that access road. The privacy interest affects the use and enjoyment of the town's own property, because people have been treating, in effect, the driveway to the town's residences as part of the road and is open to the public, which they are not.
So I recall this, and we had this discussion and the history, and did council give you direction to negotiate or work on this project?
No. I mean, I get direction from Mike as well as the council. I mean, there are a lot of things that I get involved in that are preliminary to any council involvement. And so I work with Mike and other staff to try to, one, resolve problems before they have to get to council, or two, prepare them for presentation to council. So essentially my involvement there has been in an effort to try to put the fire out, if you will, so that we wouldn't have to have a controversy that we would need to bring to the town council, and that we could hopefully resolve the conflicts among the neighbors without your involvement.
Okay. So what's been interesting that I've read in emails from the residents is they have outreach to Jackie and I requesting to have meetings with us. And so I just want to ensure that we're on parallel paths and
Well, I mean,
bridge that line of communication.
I have some comments on that. I didn't know that that had happened. We have been in touch with the neighbors, so I have my thoughts about whether it's appropriate for you to meet with them, but I would prefer to discuss it in executive session.
Just FYI, I just had a short conversation with Commissioner Child as well about this same deal, and I told him, as I told the citizen, that I'm happy to meet with her with Mike Scanlon there, because then I explained that is like having the whole council, because Mike is our interface. And so it didn't happen, but just FYI, I never got recontacted.
Well, one of my concerns is that there's a lot of misinformation floating around out there, okay?
Well, I think this conversation is better a different way and time, personally.
Sounds good. I just wanted to, so that was what my question was, is, oh wow, okay, I didn't know that you were representing us in that, and
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, should we go back and do motions on 9?
Yes.
Can I do them all at once?
I would love to do that.
Can I make a motion to approve 9B, C, and D?
Is there a second? Second by Mark. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys for doing this. It's kind of cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's great. Do we have anything for executive session, or is that just a placeholder? Just a placeholder. Do we have anything else, any burning desires, any Bernie desires? Okay. All right, is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Thanks, guys. Oh, cute.